This is Steve Lentini, and I'm your host for the podcast Different Thinking for Different Times. This is Season 3, Episode 10. I want to read a few quotes. Here's one from Marcus Mosiah Garvey. Never forget that intelligence rules the world, and ignorance carries the burden. Therefore, remove yourself as far as possible from ignorance and seek as far as possible to be intelligent. Then Ernest Holmes says, remember, we're dealing with intelligence. It's going to evolve our concept exactly as we involved it. So let me read that again from Ernest Holmes. Remember, we are dealing with intelligence. It is going to evolve our concept exactly as we involved it. So when we practice inclusion or infinite thinking, acceptance, we're dealing with creative intelligence. Think about what small minded thinking does. What does that model? If everything will evolve exactly as we involve it, if we're small minded, what will manifest in our world? Here's something from the Science of Mind magazine and this month's writer. Always remember, the writer says, that you were created after the divine image from an infinite intelligence that can be used to bring about the life you desire. No matter the situation, you have the power to change it. And this month's author is Eugene Holden, who's a Science of Mind practitioner and minister. But think about when I talk about small minded thinking, the acorn brain, what can that possibly evolve in your world? I was one with the intelligence, the infinite. What created this life on November 18th, 2002? You know, I've told that story many times because I want to repeat it. I went from this to what's next, from this physical existence to the pure consciousness that Deepak Chopra says. We come from pure consciousness and we return to it. And we cannot even begin to picture with our little acorn brains, our small minded, finite thinking, we cannot even picture it. Take my word for it. You'll get there someday, hopefully not in the next 5 minutes or when you click off this podcast. But think about incorporating the infinite intelligence into your daily existence. And that means bringing thinking that's way beyond our reactionary mind, the automatic thought. Pure consciousness that I saw, that I got a glimpse of, had no labels, no name, no religion, no sexes, no races, no nothing. I knew immediately that I was one with everything and nothing. And think about that for a minute. Physicists have concluded, as best they can, I mean, to me, it's obvious that everything here appeared from nothing, from no thing. It came from the infinite intelligence. And when you return to that, you'll see very quickly that nothing from here, no thing from here is there. And you don't even remember your small-minded thinking. It cannot exist there in the face of the infinite, in the face of what created this miracle we live in. This thing that scientists and physicists do the best they can to figure out how it was created. And yet, when they say that, when they say they found what made this, you know, I like to say, well, I'll ask them, well, what made that? We cannot even begin to calculate this miracle we live in. And we can start on the path to an amazing life, a miraculous life, when we think infinitely, limitless. And we leave behind all those small minded thoughts because, after all, who is the thinker of the thought? Your thoughts can run you, or you can run them. Take some quiet time to just notice the crazy thoughts that pass through you and allow them to just pass through you. If you do this every day, you'll, even for just 5 minutes, you'll create a new habit of managing your thinking. But first, notice how small minded most of your thoughts are. We have 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, according to scientists. Imagine if you paid attention to every one of them, and you do know you have many small minded thoughts. After all, I do, even after that experience. And because of that gift, I manage them much better than ever. I'm more accepting of what is here in this physical existence, which includes a lot of conflict and chaos because so many people listen to their acorn brain. And I'm not talking about nirvana or perfection. What I'm talking about is embracing the moment, because that's all there was in pure consciousness was the now, which for me, I concluded that the God I was looking for all the time and praying to was simply in the now. By learning to accept everything that shows up in my life in the now, including that means embracing all the things my little acorn brain says to rail against that don't match my picture. When the acorn brain says, don't be happy, or don't accept that, or don't allow that, or try to change this person's mind. After all, it's none of my business. You have to prove that to yourself. Just think in today's world how many people try to change other people's minds. We don't have to look far for that. So take a second and just ponder the concept of the infinite and work on overcoming that small-minded part of your brain, the egoic mind, the one that defines you from outside things. And just choose to live from the inside out. Life is best lived from the inside out, is my quote. I also say, if you don't like your experience of the world, change how the world is experiencing you. After all, you are the only one you can control. And what if your small minded thinking, by focusing on small minded thinking, wanting people to change their political views, whatever they are, wanting people to change their views about the little things that occur in our lives or even in our country, what if you just stopped and listened and accepted that other people are different from you and that your views are fine? Maybe they're small minded. I don't know. I would ask you that. If you want to be on the podcast, if you'd like to challenge some of my beliefs, sounds like my dogs want to be on the podcast. Just email me, Steve at stevelentini.com. That's Steve at Steve, LENTINI.com. I'll be glad to challenge you. Remember, I might ask you, does that sound like small minded thinking? Remember, don't take my word for any of it. You have to prove that this way of living or this way of thinking, challenging your small minded thoughts, has value to you. And you'd have to give it time. You have to test it for yourself. You have to give it 5 years, 10 years. How about just accepting the now for the rest of your life and embracing it with a smile, knowing that's the divine? That's God, the life force, the universe, the goddess, the Brahma, the Buddha, the Christ, the Muhammad consciousness, the Abraham consciousness, nudging you to grow and accept it. What if it was that knocking on your consciousness to say, think bigger, think infinite, think like the creator that created this miracle we live in? Thanks.